Hey everyone, I'm excited to share with you on this episode of Grow with Glow two phenomenal athletes, but really the content's going to come from a good friend, Marvin Hall. Now, Marvin Hall is a chiropractic patient. He is a guy that is known for speed, quickness, agility, and actually ranked somewhere around 4th or 5th all time at the combine. You see, a 4.240 is really fast. So he got a job as a wide receiver, even though he was undrafted. Stayed in the league for years based on his work ethic, his being humble, and also his willingness to just want to get better next year. Blessed with some natural talents and crazy speed, Marvin Hall was a deep threat in the National Football League. As an NFL receiver, there's an abundance of talent. There's also an abundance of ego. And I think what you'll see in this particular interview, he's got none of that. It was just all hard work and heart and a pure joy for him to be in the NFL. As we sit down, I'm joined by Matt Treanor, who really had some beautiful insight as a professional athlete, being a locker room guy, meaning being a good teammate and working well with others. And Matt played professional baseball, but there's some really cool parallels that then work in any sport that you'll get to hear from two what are known as clubhouse guys. What I mean is the ultimate compliment from teammates is he's a clubhouse guy. And what that means is everybody wants to be around him. You wouldn't mind having that teammate pick up your family from the airport or run an errand because you trust them. They're good people. They're polite. They're gentlemen. And honestly, this is really where Marvin shines, is just his sincere effort to be a better human, his sincere love for helping people. And then he went back and started a charity in South Central LA to help children who are definitely underprivileged, and did it in a very positive way with this big beaming smile and nothing but abundance and gratitude. You're going to love this. This is Marvin Hall, an underdog story, a guy blessed with speed who maximized on his opportunities. But before I turn it over to the interview, I'll let you know he made some mistakes, he owned up, and he got better. And I think that's the lesson for the younger listeners. And for the adults jumping on, this is a good one. Kick your feet up. You're going to take some notes because Marvin covers ground. And in football season, I always think about guys like this, how I'd want them in my huddle or on my team. You'll love this from Marvin Hall. All right, everybody, welcome back. We are sitting down for another episode, and today we have Marvin Hall, who's an NFL wide receiver, a phenomenal human being. He is doing a lot with charities, on the field, off the field, helping kids out. Just a super inspirational guy, but also a phenomenal athlete. And of course, I'm sitting down with my wingman, Matt Treanor, who is going to bring the validation of the athleticism to the conversation and just really get into some of the details. So we always do a little homework, Marvin, before we sit down with our guests. And Matt is like a student of the game, phenomenal athlete himself, played pro baseball for 20 years, but he's a game film guy. So before we even get started and jump into who Marvin is, what did you pick up on the game film?
Probably Dorsey High's fastest human on a football field from what I saw. Actually, the first video I saw was him outrunning 21 other guys on the field, yeah. Probably for a total of about 115 yards total, and impressive. So check that out. And actually I had a bunch of questions about track, and we had talked earlier about all that, and he did play a bunch of different sports. But your speed was one of the first things that I saw pop out. Yeah.
Right on. So thank you for being here. I like to jump in with a little bit of the backstory. So if you're cool with it, just talk us through like your childhood, where you grew up, just some of the things at your house, and then we'll get into some of the more known things, the accolades of sports and some of that stuff. But just kind of give us a little thumbnail sketch of how you grew up, who you are, and where you came from.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure.
I'm from the inner city of Los Angeles. I grew up in a house of just me and my sister. My mother has 5 other siblings. I have on my own. I have six of us total. I'm the oldest.
Okay.
So yeah, we were a pretty tight knitted family. We did not all grow up in the same home. Pretty rough upbringing, I would say that honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But it did not define who we were.
Right on.
We continued to fight and strive to be the people that we wanted to be, opposed to what the world told us we could be.
Right on.
Yeah, that's kind of my background.
And I think that always plays into what people want to do later. right? Like, and so some of that we'll get into with how you're helping other kids out, but just providing hope. And it's one of those key ingredients in life, man. People need hope, you know? But also, I think what you said right away is just, you know, your upbringing doesn't define you, who you are. So talk us through Dorsey High School, college, and then before we get to the NFL, talk us through some of those years.
Dorsey was a challenging experience because you're trying to figure out who you are. You're trying to figure out where you're going, what it is that you want to do in this world. But a lot of times, but the area you're in, like I said, you're defined of who you are because you stay here or you've been here or you do this. For me, it was a challenging thing to figure out, you know, which direction to go because you have college or you have the streets. And for me, I knew the streets wasn't the right way to go. Although that's what was given to us, that's kind of what we were supposed to do. That was the norm for us. Right. I knew I was different. And, you know, we had this thing, it was dare to be different. And I think that's the first thing that kind of stuck with me when I got to Dorsey.
I love it.
Everybody was doing the same thing, but I was like, you know, I have to get my family out of the situation. How would I do that? I have to be different. And so, yeah, during Dorsey, it was like I say, it was one of those things like trying to find yourself.
And then playing football in college, talk us through that a little bit.
Culture shock was the first thing I would say. Coming from the inner city of Los Angeles, like I said, it's a different environment once you get up to the University of Washington. I was not able to fully be myself when I got there because, like I said, I'm from an urban area. I didn't talk like everybody else. I didn't move the same way everybody moved. I didn't think how everybody else thought. So I had to figure out, like, you know, what is it that I bring to this place? Like, how can I show people who I am? And I did that through, like I said, going to school, first and foremost, taking school serious and showing people, okay, I'm not just a dumb jock. You know, I'm a human being who aspires to be something in this world. And so college was, like I said, at the beginning, it was kind of tough. Yeah. Very tough for me, you know, coming from the urban area.
Right on. Matt and I have had some conversations about you bouncing around through the minor leagues and working your way up to the majors. But I just think that question that you asked of yourself, you know, just kind of a philosophy for life is the quality of your questions equals the quality of your life. So your question was, what do I bring here?
Yes, sir.
Some people will say, what can this place give me? Two totally different mentalities. But we've had conversations about this, and that was always Matt's thing. Like, what do I bring to this clubhouse? What do I bring to this team? What are some of your thoughts on that, where you show up somewhere and you don't know anybody or just having that philosophy in life?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about the college football life versus the NFL. I think that's more similar probably for you than it was going from high school to Washington, University of Washington. But, you know, one of those things, how do you fit in with a new group of guys, the competition you have with the receiving corps itself, guys that, you know, you want to make a club. And everybody goes into training, only so many jobs out there. And then how do you link up with that quarterback for that trust and all that stuff in the regular season, game time and all that? So one of my questions was, how do you go into an NFL team and make yourself known without pushing too many buttons and causing a rift? You know what I mean?
For me, it was being myself, authentically myself, opposed to coming in and trying to prove something to somebody that's not really who I am. You know, I went in there and I presented Marvin Hall Jr. And I feel a lot of people accepted that.
Did you learn that through the course of the years at Washington?
I would say definitely Washington because, like I said, it was one of those things where in college you had to really figure out who you were. If you didn't know who you were throughout college, it made it a lot harder for you. And for me, like I said, I took a lot of time to meditate, to pray, and ask God to show me and reveal who I truly am.
And that came through struggle, though, you were saying.
A lot of struggle, you know, definitely. And it was just one of those things, like I said, it just takes patience. You know, you be patient in who you becoming, you know, and just let God kind of lead the way.
Right.
We've done some interviews, Matt and I, and that theme has come up before where, you know, pray to God, you can ask questions, and then through meditation, you get answers.
Yes, most definitely.
You know, and so I think those two things kind of go hand in hand, right? But again, just kind of like when you got to the minor leagues and you were talking about, your mom gave you a skillet and said, here's how to make an omelet. Like,
Right.
at least you can make that. I think there's always that soul searching, right? That first step up is always going to be the biggest one, whether it's college football or the minor leagues. It's like there's always going to be that first thing. And if you don't know yourself, you can lose who you could be in addition to who you are, right? So just being grounded, I think I didn't play pro sports, so I can't imagine that's easy when you have access to things and money and you're always moving, because change is an easy panacea. To move places is always fun and fresh. So how does that play into it?
Understanding that change is a part of life. Me personally, I embrace change because the world is constantly evolving. People are constantly evolving. You can go up or down, sideways. It just all varies on the decisions you make.
Right.
And for me, it was just like, understanding, okay, how do I get to these next levels? I have to continue to grow.
Right.
And, growth is something that, like I said, I love more than anything in this world, because it allows you to be who you ultimately are here to be.
Right on. They often say that in order to change, you need a challenge.
Yes.
What was, aside from that first year, what was one of the biggest challenges you had maybe later in college, junior, senior year? Because at some point you get acclimated, you figure out who you are, right? But then later in school, what were some of the challenges you had?
I would have to say my coaches asked me to leave the school. Like I said, I wasn't the calmest person back then, I would say. So, I was a little bit more
Because I'm not picking up that vibe right now. How about you?
Oh, yeah, he had mentioned that to me earlier, and I was like, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I would say I was a little bit more outspoken back then. So, it was when they asked me pretty much like, to leave the school because we just, wasn't clicking. And I remember I called my dad, and I was really, 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 really shaken up from that. It really took me to a place where I didn't want to be. And I just told him, like, Dad, although they don't want me to be here, I'm going to stay here because I committed to something. And I'm not going to let anyone run me away from anything, because I've never been that type of person. And that moment kind of defined who I was, and it showed me who I was.
Yeah.
Just because I wouldn't let nobody, tell me anything different than what I wanted.
That's huge.
What were those things that you were having issues with? Were you being vocal with wanting the ball more? Was it just personality differences between players and coaches? What were those things?
I say respect.
You wanted respect.
I wanted respect. Most people don't come to me and ask me who I am. They tell me who I am. And 9 times out of 10, if you come to me, I'm a very open person. I'm like open book, But they weren't really asking me, who is Marvin Hall? They were telling me who Marvin Hall was, and that was a conflict for me.
Through your game and the rest of that, this is what you're going to do.
Yes.
Right.
I think that's huge for people listening, especially younger athletes, because you're going to get challenges. They're going to have different coaches. You're going to be on different squads. Number one, what can I bring as far as value to this team? That's a huge question you asked. But then having that maturity when things get tough, because we've all been there, right? That's part of being an athlete, is just the adversity. And then how do you choose to respond? And it is a choice.
Yes.
Right? So what did you do? What would you say was the right answer in that situation, or how did you make that better? Because you wound up finishing school there.
Yeah,
and then obviously going on to the NFL. So spoiler alert, when we said he's an NFL receiver, like it's a good ending, right? It's like, but what did you have to do?
Lean on my support system. My mom, my dad, my sisters, my brothers, the people who truly love me, and that's the type of people I want around me typically. Is the people who love me. Of course, right. You can love people, but if you're not around the ones who love you, you will never get the realness that you need. And they just told me pretty much like, you come from something that's hard. Why would you shy away from it now? And that kind of helped me to, stick in there. I graduated with my bachelor's, and, I'm grateful for them sticking with me, and just so I can get to my ultimate goal.
Right on. And what was the ultimate goal when you got to the NFL? Were you drafted? Did you have to make it as a walk-on? Talk us through that.
I was not drafted. I just got opportunity. And my goal was to prove to the world that I am who I say I am.
Right on.
And really prove it to myself more than anything, because like I said, when you have people telling you who you are all this time, you really don't know. But for me, it was like, okay, I can sit with myself, I can talk to the man upstairs, and I can really figure this out.
Yeah.
And so, that was very key for me.
I'm going to ask both of you this question. Answer it however you choose. But spring training baseball, when you're trying to make a roster or get moved to somewhere else, and then when you were in the NFL, you had to try out, which means you have to stay healthy, right? So if you get hurt, tryout's over. right? If you're a walk-on, you're not a drafted athlete. And then in the minor leagues, you went from single A to double A to triple A and eventually to the major leagues. So one, what was your own personal experience? And maybe two, share with the listeners what would be the lesson. Because I always say the best thing is if you make a mistake, you have to learn a lesson. The only sin is to make the mistake and not learn the lesson. But even better is if you can learn the lesson without the mistake because you're listening to people who have done it. So maybe those two things.
Yeah, I mean, experience usually comes with failure, in my opinion. Now, baseball for me, I think is a little bit easier than the NFL lifestyle because you either make the club or you're on the practice squad. You get hurt preseason game and it's an injury that's not going to be a couple weeks that you're going to be on a practice squad, maybe working your way back to the regular club. You're out, gone. And now baseball's a little bit different. They have the other levels that you can work out in and work your way back up, and they do need a lot more guys. Now,
so there's some security in that.
A sense of it, yeah. And so I understand too that I would say that college football is that time period where you have that opportunity to iron out your game, your mentality, however you're going to go about your business. Nowadays, what I'm starting to find is that talking to some of these, in fact, I talked to an agent the other day at a baseball game, and he mentioned that they're giving guys less of an opportunity. It doesn't matter if they give them a lot of money. They're giving them a shorter window in order to succeed. And part of that is there's less guys in the minor leagues. They're cutting back on some of that personnel. But even at the big league level, though, in comparison to at the NFL level where you have guaranteed contracts.
Right.
You blow out a knee or an elbow, you're going to take 18 months to rehab or something like that. You're guaranteed your money. You get signed for $50 million. You have a terrible season, 2 seasons, 3, whatever it is, you're still guaranteed that money. So there is that sense of, hey, I have that security to where I need to get back to where I need to in order to make this happen. Whereas you could probably speak to that a little bit better about more of a cutthroat scenario in the NFL.
So before we jump over there, what would be your lessons for mentality, like going into each spring, going into each thing? Because you spent 7-8 years in the minors and you worked your way up, and everybody has to if they're going to play Major League Baseball. Right. But what is that mentality going into it? Like, how do you stay sharp? Well,
first off, is like when you're a younger guy coming into big league camp, that's an honor in itself. Now it's shut your mouth, silence, right? Be open to what's going on and learn something. Don't go in there and start, this is the way I'm going to do it. Although there is that element of confidence. If you can come in there and have your personality and your game at the same time, you might open some eyes. Going back to just being a young guy, being aware and understanding your role and knowing, hey, I'm not making this club, but I can take this opportunity to learn as much as I can. But I will say this, every time I was a young guy going into spring training, I know I was getting sent down. That day you get called into the office, it's like a kick to the crotch.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
like I'm getting fired. So, when you are an older player and you're on that cusp of making that team and you get called in and they tell you, hey, listen, you're not ready yet, that type of situation, it doesn't feel good. And sometimes there might be a surprise, like, hey, you're not going to AAA, you're going to AA. Or you might get that call in the office when you're in AAA, hey, you're going down. Something's happening.
So in any of those moves, what would you tell yourself? Like, what would be the self-talk? Because I think that's big.
A lot of times it gives you that fight. Like, no way, you're not going to tell me I'm this. I'm getting after it. I'm going to do it. And you see guys, and sometimes they do that to guys to see what they're capable of. Elevate yourself. This might be a wake-up call for you. So, when I was 23, something happened to me on the field, and I thought I was done. But I didn't go to school. I didn't have an education, still don't. And a guy by the name of Rick Mailer pulled me aside after I threw a temper tantrum in the dugout, probably broke a few rakes and whatnot. And he said, hey, man, this is what you chose to do. You don't go and hang drywall now because you're going to give up. You wait until every team tells you it's over with. And that was a wake-up call to me to say, hey, listen, I need to figure this out. Now, later down the road when you're an older player, and I did have that opportunity. I got a little taste in the big leagues, and the next year I'm fighting for a job. They brought in somebody with more big league time than I did. He had probably an inside shot to win that job, a veteran guy. And I told myself, hey, this is not happening. I'm making this team. And it's amazing how you set like a mental goal for yourself and your game gets elevated just because that stuff's not going to bug me. I'm waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning, being at the clubhouse, and I'm tired. That's nothing. That's part of the game. If you want to play 162 games over 182 days, you're going to get tired. So that's not going to be a factor in why I can't perform. So just doing all those little things, just making sure you're there working, doing your stuff. And Marvin and I were talking earlier. I did some coaching afterwards, very limited. But I learned more about my personal game that I wish I could have applied just by being able to coach and teach.
Mm-hmm.
And Marvin had said something about that with teaching young guys and being able to experience those things that I wish I would have applied, or at least been recognizing of those things while I was in the moment. So
yeah. You guys know I teach chiropractors, and I always say teacher learns the most. I teach because I learn, and it's a really cool perspective, right? To kind of have that where you're trying to articulate it or break it into steps, and all of a sudden you're like, I guess that is how I've been doing it. So I'm going to come back to some of that because I'm champing at the bit now. I'm like, oh, that's good. Like, what would be yours?
For me,
challenge and lesson.
For me, it was very challenging because I did not go to no combine. I did not get a true opportunity. I got a tryout. I was a tryout guy. And for me, I had this chip on my shoulder because I have to go over and beyond to show who Marvin Hall is. And so, getting in the building with those guys, it's like, okay, like I said, you come here with guys who got 40, 50, $60 million, and I have probably 2 quarters to rep together.
Right.
And so now you have to, see, what is it that I can bring to this table to showcase, my talents? For me, it happened to be my speed. So all I knew was, when I get in here, run as fast as you can. That's all I knew.
Can you tell me what that speed is exactly in a 40-yard dash?
I ran 4.28.
that's getting it.
That's crazy. So 40-yard dash, what was that number again?
4.28.
4.28. That's insane.
Yes,
How do you not sign that?
Yeah.
Right. So if I summarize this correctly, this is my interpretation of what you both said. There's a challenge and there's a thing, and there's people that don't believe in you. Somebody didn't give you the job. You didn't make the squad you wanted to make. Not getting an invite to the combine means you're a lesser than, you're an inferior than, whatever it is. But if I hear you guys correctly, what you did and what I'm going to suggest for the people listening to do is you weaponize the emotion. Right? Like you said, get the fight, and you said, okay, I'm going to prove myself. So to me, it's like you take that negative mojo and you pull it in. You go, okay, that's going to be my drive. Like everybody's getting up at 6 a.m. Everybody's tired playing 162 games in 182 days. It's what it is. We had a coach in college who used to say, once you're wet, you're wet. And I was like, what the fuck is this guy saying? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's raining. You're wet, you're wet. And it was like, by my junior year, we had guys pissing him on. It's going to be rainy out there, and how long is the game going to be? And I'm like, hey, once you're wet, you're wet. It doesn't matter. Like, it's in the rain. It's just, and I was like, oh shit, I just quoted the guy I disliked, So it's like, but I just think if you weaponize that, right? Like that's your challenge. And with the challenge, it makes you change. It makes you get better. So obviously you made it in the NFL. How many years have you been playing as a receiver now?
This is year 7.
Year 7. I love it. What was the first team you played for?
The Oakland Raiders.
Right on. And what was that contract?
I don't even remember. It was nothing.
But it was a lottery ticket, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to play the game you love.
Yeah.
So what I love is I kind of knew that answer. The money doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, but you got validated.
Yeah.
Right? So whatever the contract was, it's like I got my ticket punch. Those guys that make it to the big leagues for a cup of coffee, they would call it. And just in hockey, it's the same thing. Oh, I got a cup of coffee. I played a couple of games, but doesn't matter. I mean, people would pay to play.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Once you've had that fight and that challenge, and people say you can't and you shouldn't, or you're not big enough, or didn't go to the right school, or whatever the thing is, it's like, no, you take that and you make that your motivation. You pull that into your gut and you go, fucking, I got this. Business, you could have it in your family. You can have it with relationships, and you just go, no, I'll choose to be better than this. And so a lot of it is the mindset shift first. Right? The mind's got to shift first, and then the results come. The mind's got to shift first, and then your habits change, your workouts change, like the intensity changes. Mm-hmm. And at 23, to throw a tantrum and have someone say, hey, man, like you chose this, so you're not done now. That's an MBA. That's a master's in business, a master's in baseball administration. I don't know.
It was a redirection, I think, of like the reason why you're throwing the temper tantrum is because you want it.
Yeah.
And so let's redirect that energy into getting it. What was it like for you first time you put on an NFL team jersey, helmet, ready to walk out to a workout?
It was surreal. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to react. I just knew that I had to be present in the moment.
You smiling?
Oh, big. Huge. My mom and my dad was there. So that was probably the best part, just to see them smile. You
proud.
know? Yeah, I couldn't even focus on myself. I was
Yeah.
more focused on my mom and dad for sure.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Right on. And you've played for some pretty awesome quarterbacks too. I mean, Matt Ryan in Atlanta. You had Stafford when you played for Detroit, and he was there. Trevor Lawrence last season. What's it like to have a connection with the QB when you're just in sync and when things are going right?
That's the ideal situation for sure, especially when you have people like the guys you named, Matthew Stafford, Matt Ryan, Trevor Lawrence. Being the younger guy, but those guys were true professionals. So it was just like a thing of beauty. You walk in and they're kind of telling you exactly what they want, how they want it. So the only thing you have to do is just be, like I said, present in that moment. And when your opportunity is called, you have to just take advantage of it.
So I had a question about more of a technical thing. How do you manage emotion and that fired up feeling and remember a playbook? You know what I mean? Like where you don't want to, like you're walking on the field and I'm sure you guys do a bunch of studying. They send you home with books and do all this stuff. How do you know obviously you got to probably know other guys' routes and all that other stuff happening on the field, plus the feel of the quarterback and then maybe audibles or whatever's going on the field. But being so locked in, like fired up, hey, I'm on the field doing my thing, and not wanting to fail. How do you remember all of that stuff?
Well, for me, it's going to be a little joke, but I don't want to get sent home. So at the end of the day,
I like that.
You sit and you study. You study day in and day out, no matter how hard it is, no matter how much you have to remember.
Anybody help you with that?
Along the way, initially, no. I'll be honest, I kind of did it on my own.
Yep.
But then when I got to Detroit, I'll never forget Marvin Jones, Kenny Galladay, and Danny Amendola. I feel like those guys really helped me to take my game to the next level because they were so much pros. Like, I couldn't come in there and shortchange anything.
Were you doing that at the facility or back at the hotel apartment?
Wherever it was needed,
Yep.
Anywhere I could be outside eating somewhere, I would have my playbook in my hand because it was just that important to me.
Right.
And then, like I said, once you get around true professionals, not seeing none of the guys, taking up from none of the other guys. But those three guys really showed me like, okay, you have to really take your game to this next level.
Now, how does that transfer from one club to the next? Being a slot receiver, a specific type of receiver, and taking that playbook, is it just a difference in language and the way a quarterback calls it, or is it a completely different book?
A lot of it's completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's completely different. And so, like, you have to really have your head on straight to get in these books.
So once you have an idea of how to study and prepare that way, you just take that and just apply it to a whole nother book.
Yeah. Look, after you get it, the first couple of times, you become like second nature. Yeah.
Was that Danny Amendola after the Patriots?
Yes, that was
Okay.
that. He was in year about 13 or 14 or something like that.
So
by the
he'd
time I
won
got to
some
him.
Super Bowls and basically brought that veteran experience. How
Yes.
important is that for both of you guys to learn from a veteran? Talk me through that.
For me, it was a guy named Paul LaDuca. A little bit of it was confidence. And in fact, when I first got called up to the big leagues, I spent 2 months. I was on the team, and they traded him for him from the Dodgers. And he pinch hit for me in a game. First or second pitch, he hit a 2-run or 3-run homer. And I knew I was getting sent down. I mean, it's just even before he hit the home run, the place goes berserk and all this stuff. And even before he got the at-bat, he came up to me and he said hi to me. The whole thing, made himself almost like available, like, hey, I'm not here to do anything, kid. This is business type of deal.
Yeah.
And then the following year when I had to win that job, he and A.J. Burnett and a couple other guys, they took me under their wing. Just good guys showing me the ropes and helping me understand the game a little bit better. I hit in the spot, in the 8 spot, right in front of the pitcher. Yeah, right in front of the pitcher, where you might have to take some chances on occasion. He would explain to me, hey, don't take the walk there trying to put the ball in play. And he was very cerebral with the game, and he wasn't a big guy. He was kind of short and didn't have the best arm, didn't block the ball the best, but he was a grinder, and he was really smart. So he can anticipate and do certain things. And a lot of what he gave me was a confidence. Hey, dude, you can do this, And I would have loved to have played with him more, but he was that guy that was able. And you know what? Later down the road, I was able to do some things for some guys when I got hurt and somebody comes up. I didn't want to have animosity. Hey, I'm eventually going to be out of here. You're probably going to take my job, type of thing.
Right.
But and that's how I felt about coaching too when I got out of the game, was if I could help a kid not fail at the things that I did, and then elevate his game, maybe easier path to maybe somewhere I didn't get when I was active. That's a bonus.
Yeah.
So Yeah. So for you with the veterans,
And for me, like I said, Danny, I'm say his name until the day I leave here. He just, like you said, the grit he had, the competitiveness. He didn't back down from anything. Like, it was just one of those things where it was like, okay, no matter what's happening on this field, no matter what's happening in the building, he was going to be present. He was going to be himself. And that's one thing he told me. He was just like, bro, you got here for a reason. Just do what got you here.
Right.
There's no magic potion. There's nothing more you need to do. Do what got you here.
Right on.
And, I really, really appreciated Danny Amendola for sure.
I love it. Both of you guys have that kindred spirit too of cooperation versus competition. Even though sport is competitive, I think you can bring a different spirit to it, which is, hey, I'm here to learn and pick up from some mentors, which I think mentors are really big because they're in the game. It's not a coach, but it's a guy doing it just at a click higher than you. But then also being able to return the favor. And I've read some articles about Matt in Sports Illustrated, guys who got notes from him, got gifts from him as soon as they got called up, or guys playing the same position, how he took them in. And he always talked about the veterans taking care of him. And I'm like, that's kind of that pay it forward mentality. You can choose to be you versus the world, but now you've weaponized those emotions for a negative, or you can see it as a positive opportunity and just say, look, I'm gonna pour into some other people. Again, teacher learns the most, but also just having that good mojo, where it's like, it could be negative every day in the clubhouse, in the classroom, at work, or you could choose to be cooperative, And for me, I teach chiropractors, and like the mentoring thing is like, hey, I'll share with you my mistakes. I always say I got bite marks, I got scars, like I've done stuff wrong. You don't need to make the mistakes, but I'm always friendly until you've been done wrong once, and then it's like, okay, well then we'll put on a different mojo. But even chiropractors moving into town, it's not a competitive thing. Like if we're really here to help people not have pills and drugs and unnecessary surgeries, like let's work with the right headspace and do this in the right way. And I think that leads to some other things. But that might even be a good segue to kind of jump into some of the stuff you're doing with your nonprofit and just helping some kids out. Talk us through that a little bit.
So I've went back to my community initially just to help out my Pop Warner team. They had like a really, really, really close like place in my heart because that was kind of where I came through. So I went back and I talked to my coach and I was like, I don't know what exactly I want to do, but I want to help. And he kind of directed me into, where to go. So what we do is I'll do like backpack drives. I'll do bike drives, toy drives. One year we took them to Dave & Buster's and let them just have fun. So like, just do different things just to show them that like no matter what you're doing, you can still enjoy life. And, there are people who care, and that's kind of been my biggest message to them. It's like, okay, all you need is a person to believe in you.
Yeah.
You don't need the world. All you need is a person a lot of the time.
Right. And that's SIMOO.
Yes.
Talk me through that a little bit. What kind of activities do you do specifically? Give me some details of where did SIMOO come from? What does the name mean? Give me some background.
So SIMOO, it means success is my only option. I came up with that back when I was probably in like 4th or 5th grade. I used to always say it, walk around the house. I heard it on Eminem's song, Lose Yourself. I think he says, success is my only option, failure's not.
Yeah.
And that's
and there was an MF in there?
Yeah.
Happens to be one of my favorite songs too.
Yeah, so I love that song and I kind of, took it and I ran with that. And I think it was 2019. I was talking to my agent and I was just like, I want to help the kids. Like, I need to figure out how to help some kids. And he was like, what do you want to call it? And I sat there for a second. I'm like, and it dawned on me. I said, success is my only option. I was like, that's something I've been saying for a long time. We took it and he was like, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. We got everything up and going. And, I went and got my 501c3 non-for-profit. And he kind of just directed me, like I said, with little different things. And the first thing I did was, like I said, a toy drive. Right. I did it for Christmas. I had adopted, I think it was 21 families or something like that. And I just got their wish list and I got everything on the list that they wanted. Me not knowing anything about nonprofit, not knowing anything about giving back, all I knew is that I wanted to help. Right. And that was kind of the first thing that kind of took it and pushed it forward.
Right on. We do something out of the office. We do a toy drive. And then actually we do it with firefighters in Long Beach. So they put Santa on top of a sleigh and they go 5-alarm fire to like 10 different families in Long Beach. And they deliver toys. And whether they were going to have a Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever they celebrate, like they just bring a ton of presents. And then all the kids from the community come out. And so everybody gets something. So there's enough toys they fill a warehouse throughout the year, and then they do it. But your dad was a firefighter.
Yeah.
They don't make them any better than that, do they? Like
Firemen are awesome.
they're just, as far as being givers, you know what I mean? It's just like, man, and so one of our things is like, you can't outgive the universe. You know, like if you're, and I also believe that if you're in alignment with the giving, that you're also going to receive. So you can't outgive the universe. It just means if your heart's right and you're trying to help other people, inevitably you're helping yourself in a roundabout way. And that's not the intention, but good things just seem to come back, whether it's relationships with people, memories, just the feelings you get. So we jump on the truck with the kids, and right before the holidays, what they like are like the headphones and the microphones the firefighters wear. You know, they love to hang out the window and then like cruise around, and then just the feeling of giving is huge. You've gone back to high schools, Cerritos College. So just to coach a little bit, how was that? Because both of you guys are still coaching, right? You're coaching some kids' football leagues, and you've gone back to the high school and college. Talk me through that a little bit, giving back to where you came from.
Well, college level, it's nice because they have to listen to you. It's different. I love being able to help somebody. Even something, I always talk about the fishing net, the big commercial fisherman. He's going out for that tuna. Everybody's going to come at these kids. When I talk to them, everybody's going to come out with this information. You know, you want the bluefin tuna and all the anchovies that you already know and all this stuff. You let them pass through, you know, but grab onto something every day. And to see somebody, you know, I was a defensive guy. So when I see somebody do something, and then apply it in the game, and it works for them, and they light up, and then they come to, hey, this and this and this. It's one of those things where like, okay, that was worth the 20 hours last week that we worked on whatever, just to see you succeed. And not because baseball is one of those sports. Could you imagine dropping 7 out of 10 balls? You wouldn't see the field again. No. You know what I mean? And that's how baseball is. It's the opposite. There's a lot of failure to it. So you got to grasp onto those positives. And when you see a kid understand it, not just get it, I hit a home run. You close your eyes and you hit it out of the ballpark, as opposed to I did the X, Y, and Z and it happened. That's something that I think carries on for that person to maybe share with somebody else or have that love for the game. And there's a lot of opportunities coming with it, for football with you, with being able to go to college and getting an education and doing the things you are right now. You could have earned all the money, whatever, but to be able to, football afforded you these different opportunities. And that's how I feel about baseball. Even if you never put on a professional uniform, if it gives you an opportunity or a mindset that's going to elevate you as a person, I'm all for it. So
I think it's huge. I mean, the brain's either a recorder of the past or a predictor of the future. The brain's either going to give you the same thoughts and the same outcomes or you have to change the way you're thinking, elevate it, and then you can be better and see better results. Like your behavior is different, the results are different. So people have to understand you're just a decision away from being a better athlete, better student, better person, better in business. But you have to decide, and then you're going to get challenged, and you can't come off your mark. That idea of weaponizing the emotions, be like, no, I'm sticking to this, and I'm just going to do what I think is huge.
And everything's evolving, constantly evolving. So when we were talking about this a little bit earlier, when you just settle and you stay flat, well, everything else is changing. Everything's evolving around you. So at 47, we were talking about sport, we were talking about everything, business, all this other stuff. I'm constantly looking for new ways to improve myself. Somatic experiences. Right. With Jamie the other day at massage, she introduced me to something that clicked with some other things that I had been looking into, stuff that Jack was talking about. And so those are things, too, that maybe I'm not going to directly push onto somebody else, but those are experiences and learning lessons that I can share with other people, maybe not in a go read this book type of thing, but to help them, get past a hurdle in order to keep improving. So
yeah. It's huge. And so you've got your nonprofit, which you've been able to go back to South Central LA. Let's call it what it is. It's one of the worst neighborhoods in the U.S., and yet you come out of there super positive. I don't think you go to college or go to the minor leagues to be the same. No. Like that might sound obvious now, but when you're in it and you're being challenged, it sucks, or you're homesick, or the food sucks, but that's part of it, right? Like that's part of the journey is like there's going to be adversity. Let me save you the mystery. In life, it's always changing and you're going to have challenges, but how you choose to respond to it is really the difference. And so you not only did the nonprofit for children, but also clothing line, talking about Silence, which is a for-profit clothing line. And what I love about that is there's a scoreboard. right? Like a nonprofit's great because you're just giving, but you can't give so much that it hurts you. And there's probably some big givers listening to this that you need some boundaries. That's the big word for givers is you got to have some boundaries because you'll give yourself empty. And then you're not fun to be around because you're empty, you're drained, and you feel like you've been taken advantage of. And takers will take and givers will give, but you got to have some boundaries if you're a giver. What is silence and what is some of the reasons why that's personal to you?
Silence is what it is. It's be quiet. I came up with this because, like I said, coming up, I had issues with saying too much sometimes. I wasn't like an arrogant person or anything like that, but I spoke my mind a lot. But sometimes I realized like if I was silent, I wouldn't have, had some of the issues I had. And so that's where I came up with silence. Silence is pretty much telling you to, close your mouth and just let things be what it's going to be. Just kind of let the cards, play the cards you're dealt. And through that, you will become successful with some peace. You got to have some peace in your life. And that's kind of where like you see it on my hat. It says, let the success make the noise with peace signs in the eyes. That's kind of just what I live by. Just close your mouth and just do the work. And the results kind of speak for you.
Close your mouth and do the work. You guys both live by that one. Like two blue-collar athletes, which is cool, but you also became cerebral in the process. I like the logo with the peace signs.
Thank you.
That's huge. So I knew we were going to talk a little about clothing. I picked up that Marvin's a shoe guy, so I just want to let you know these are some of my original Nikes. Yeah, I mean, don't get too close to these things, but this is before these were fashionable. These things are some real kicks, so I just thought I'd bring that for you. That is the one, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, these are like the original. You can still get good money for these.
Is that right?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, they're...
Please don't tell my wife. She threw them out 3 times already, and I went to the alley and pulled them back in.
What year is this?
Circa 84.
84. Wow.
I think I got those in the early 90s, though.
Put these up.
Yeah, I know. So
these.
We had a game one time in college. I played lacrosse, and one guy was wearing sneakers on a turf, and he blew out his shoes. And our coach gave him his cleats to wear for the second half of the game. Well, we beat a team we shouldn't have beat. I was a freshman, so I was the young guy on the team. So we filled the shoe up with beer. And as freshmen, we were forced, although I liked it, we had to shoot the boot drinking out of his shoes.
That's awesome.
And it was one of those things, they looked about this mangy, and I was like, oh my God. So what are your favorite shoes? Because Hero was talking about sneakers the other day, and he checked out your Instagram.
Yeah.
And like some of your shoes, he's like, look at these kicks. And I couldn't even see it was you because he blew up the image so big. So what are some of your shoes that you like?
I have a variety of shoes, but I'll say right now my favorites are probably the Travis Scotts. I'm really big on the Travis Scotts right now, and I wear a lot of those. Oh, wow.
So check that out. We went to Flight Club. We do what we call yes days. So every 90 days.
Oh, man.
These are really sweet.
Those are the reverse mochas.
Wow.
Those are Travis Scotts. So we do a yes day, and I say, okay, for one day, you pick what we want to do, and I'll take each one of the kids, or we're going to go do something fun. It can be illegal. It just can't be unsafe. Those are the rules. So like we went driving a car in a pineapple field one time with Sailor. It's like we're in Hawaii. She's 11. I'll do the pedals. You do the steering wheel. And we're up and down and all over. I'm like, but it's a rental. Like, am I alone in that thought? Like, it's a rental. Like, you can't hurt a rental. I mean, you could turn it in, which is kind of nice, right? Yeah. So you guys aren't saying very much. But anyway, it's a rental.
I don't think they have handbrakes anymore, but that was spring training favorite. A nice little car with a handbrake.
There we go. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about, right? Over the curb, or should we back it up? No, we'll just go over the curb. It's a rental, It's like, so we did it yesterday. We went to Flight Club in New York City. He's like, Dad, we were playing a lacrosse tournament in Jersey, and the city was like an hour away. So he scoped it all out. He's like, we need to go to Flight Club. I'm like, all right, cool. He's like, there's a shoe place. Cool. So we go in there. What's the most expensive pair of shoes you've seen?
In Flight Club?
Yeah, just shoes in general.
Ooh. Probably say DJ Khaled shoes, I think.
Okay.
Like Jordan-wise. But, of course, you can go Louis Vuitton. You can go all that stuff. But
I pretend like I know. I mean, these are like the only 2 pair of shoes I know. No, but so how much would those be?
Ooh, 20,000, 30,000,
Oh,
something crazy like that.
They had
something I would never.
They had a pair of shoes there for $100,000, and they were in this glass case. I think they were one that Mark Wahlberg made. He had 23 pair, and I think Jordan had 23 pair, something like that. But it was one of those like So I walked into like a whole different world.
Yeah.
You know, and the way they did the whole process was cool. We did like a sales video on it because I just was like, this is so super cool. But it was a different language for me.
Yeah.
So I love communication. I want you guys to kind of answer me a situation where you've had to figure out the language, and then how do you adapt?
Oh man,
Right?
that's my wife.
Please continue. I just love to throw Matt rope. Like he's going to hang himself. Let's
Wife and kids. No, I don't know. Like living with people. We live with a lot of different people in the minor leagues, and I guess communication with different people coming from different places, and that goes on the field too. I play with guys from different countries and all that stuff, and being able to convey, hey, I'm not a bad guy. That's one of those things. Silence comes into play. Like you don't have to prove to somebody, hey man, I'm a nice guy. You know, shut up and take the shower with the guys. You know, when I played in the Dominican Republic, I was talking. We had some young guys, and they weren't used to the amenities that were in the clubhouse, and there was none. I mean, it was third world. And when you think you're better than, and you decide not to be a part of that, what do you think those guys think of you? They don't speak English, but they're watching, you know. So I took it upon myself. I had 5 years in the big leagues, and I go to this place, and I told the young guys, I said, hey, I'm showering here. You know, I'm hanging out. I'm doing my thing. And I'll tell you what, guys that didn't speak the same language, they'd go to war with me. You know, they'd defend me. They'd do anything. And that's just showing them respect. So, and I laugh about my wife too, because what made her good on the volleyball court doesn't make her a fantastic spouse sometimes, you know. The stare in the eyes like, oh, really? Really? You know, that type of thing. So my wife played volleyball, and she was a great competitor, and people could be talking trash. In Brazil, it was notorious for people yelling stuff from the crowd, and they didn't like Americans so much on the volleyball court. But she was able to tune it out. And then obviously kids. You know, the kids are, you know, so young they don't know how to communicate, and then, you know, they rile you up, get you so frustrated sometimes, and being able to understand, hey, listen, just take a step back, and you know, that comes from a little bit of my past, you know, things that have happened to me, and I don't want to say controlling the situation, but I like to control the situation a little bit, you know. So, you know, when things happen to you, last thing you want to do is maybe take a step back in life, you know, and that's how I feel. It's like, I don't want to go back. And sometimes you end up, your biggest fears end up causing you to do things that you really don't want to do. So, I think that's important too, is just what you focus on is what you're going to get. Yeah. And if it's a fear statement or a don't statement or a negative, I don't want this, I don't want that. Well, the brain doesn't know
I have a
negative
good one.
commands. Yeah.
Focus, time, imagination equals reality.
Say that again.
Focus, time, imagination equals reality.
Right on.
Yeah,
Focus,
that's a big one.
time, imagination equals reality. Situation where you had to communicate better.
I would say the same thing, having to live with different people.
Okay.
When you have to live with different people, you have to learn to adapt to these people and understand that everybody's not going to be like you. Everybody's not going to think like you. Everybody's not going to talk like you, you know. And just being accepted and not coming in and being judgmental, you know. So for me, that was hard, like you said, coming in and, you know, seeing these different ethnicities and, you know, different backgrounds. Like, okay, well, how do I fit in opposed to how do I come in and stand out? You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So we talked a little bit about your clothing lines. Where can people find those? What are websites? Where can they follow up with that? So first and foremost, with the nonprofit, it'll be SIMOOFoundation.com. Okay. That's where, you know, that's where my site is at. So you can go to my site. As far as with the clothes, so everything's getting up and going now. So I'll keep Dr. Glow updated with everything. We'll put it in the notes. We can put it in the show notes in there. And everything updated. I'm always curious, who is your best coach and why? My best coach, I would say my high school coach. I actually just seen him recently. I thanked him. I just thanked him. I couldn't stop thanking him. His name is Paul Knox. He's really big in LA. He's a well-known name. But he had like characteristics of a father. Even though I have my dad in my life, my dad's a great man. We give him his flowers. But Coach Knox, he instilled in, you know, standing firm on who you are, no matter what, you know, what the circumstance is. And he drilled that into me, and I just thank him, and I'm grateful for him. Right on. Mentors are huge. You know, we talked a little bit with Jack about Jack Canfield about limiting beliefs and having glass ceilings. We were talking about that in the car ride over here, because a lot of times
where people think they have limitations, and it's a thought, it's not a reality, where they think they have limitations, it's been planted by someone. And it could be teachers, preachers, coaches, it could be mentors, it could be siblings, but there's this limiting belief. And you can rewire it, you can do affirmations, you can do things to get out of that. But what is that kind of for both of you, just as far as having a mentor or a coach that pours into you, and kind of the opposite of a limiting belief? So again, I don't want to turn it into a negative because you guys are both so positive, but like, who's been someone that kind of helped you and your best coach, and why? And then, how important is that for people to realize limiting beliefs are things you can break through and you can be better on the other side of it?
You take this one, Marvin. You go ahead first.
I would say understand everything that you want in this world is up to you. We get two things in this life, and that's a chance and a choice. So no matter what no one says.
I'll say that again. You get a what?
You get a chance and a choice.
I like that.
And that's all up to you. What you do with your 24 hours is totally up to you. What result you get is totally up to you. So, understanding no matter what nobody say, you still can be who it is that you ultimately are on this earth to be.
Right on. Right on.
My mentor, and it wasn't anything specific my dad did, but it is my dad, the way he worked. And he said something to me one time, and it didn't click until I was probably about out of the game. But he said, don't burn the candle at both ends. And that's something I learned the hard way. But just watching his work ethic, he had 8 kids. He was a fireman. And then he'd come home and wash windows. He had his little business on the side. And I spent a lot of time with him. He'd come and pick me up. We'd go work, and just seeing, the things. And I guess the older I get too, I understand the traumas and the difficulties he's had throughout the years, and being able to, not every reaction is good either. Some of the things I learned wasn't a positive at the time, but when you start to understand those things, you realize that person's human too.
Yeah.
And they've got a heart. Same thing with like dealing with other people. Hey, your probably common ground was football or sport or whatever you're doing at that time. And hey, these people have feelings and they want things just as bad as you do. So to knock them down just because they make a mistake isn't cool. But for me, one of my favorite coaches, and this might be a shock to him if he ever heard this, was a guy named Gary Tuck. I've had a lot of really good catching instructors over the years. Bob Nadel was a guy that comes to mind as well. But Gary Tuck came to me when I was Joe Girardi was our manager in Florida. They were like a tag team duo. And it was the first time I really had some significant catching instruction in the big leagues. And that was a year that I had my year throwing.
So he's being modest here. He led the major leagues in throwing guys
It
out.
might be the
stealing
National League.
bases.
I'm not sure, but
I just upgraded to I'll be the promoter here.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball, he led with like a 48% throwing out rate of guys stealing. So attempted steals, throwing dudes out. So he was a defensive catcher and just gunned dudes down. Hit home runs, hit bombs. But I just said, look, to lead a statistical category in any professional sport for a whole season, like you could do it for a weekend and I would be impressed. But for a whole season, like takes commitment. So
blush a little bit sometimes. But, so the guy's name was Gary Tuck, and his nickname was Taco. And he was this frumpy dude that just everybody thought he was a jerk, to say that, to narrow it down to one word. But he really cared about his catchers. And in fact, it didn't matter what was going on in spring training. You weren't going to get in the way of our work. And there was a discipline to it. So I think I thrived with structure. We had to line up our bags a certain way. All these other guys are like, oh, this is bullshit. What's going on? But I was like, hey, we are the unit. And he called us the backbone. We're the backbone of the club. Mm-hmm. And the way we worked and the way we did things, and after ball games, during the regular season, he'd want to talk baseball and all this stuff. And I reached out to him not too long ago. Didn't get through to him, but I'll see if his number's still good. But he was one guy that he was hard-nosed, and I spent a short amount of time with him, but he was one of my favorites.
You should circle back, because it's always good to get that feedback back. Like you guys were talking about coaching, and the kid makes the play, and they look at you like there's that connection. Yeah. And you're like, dude, this is huge. Like, you know it, but the fact that they know that you know it, you know what I mean? That's so if you can, both of you played very cerebral positions, though. You were talking a little bit about walking around with the playbook, and it's a very physical game, but I don't think people realize as a receiver how mental it is. Zone defense versus man, cover two, audibles at the line of scrimmage, situation down and distance and situation. Like, you are always calibrating as a catcher in the major leagues. Who's on base? How many outs? What are this pitcher's tendencies? You're calling pitch by pitch. If we put it to the outside of the plate, the dude's going to take us deep. We got to work the inner half of the plate. You've got to know what pitches are his favorite and call the opposite. And so just very cerebral. So talk me through a little bit about what you do mentally to stay sharp. And I'm going to throw it at you guys too about the physical part of it. But mentally, what did you do to make sure that you could just run a 4.28 40, which is freaking ridiculous? But like, what did you have to do mentally to take that element out? Because I know as an athlete, it's just fun to play, but you don't get to play if you're in your head.
Yeah, you take time to meditate, take time to pray. Those are my two big things. Mm-hmm. I can't make it like, I did some miraculous thing. That was something I would do for the game. I would listen to something that I really like, something calming, just to calm my nerves, calm my mind, calm my spirit. Just to come back to center. And a lot of times, like you said, once you trust the process of the week, the game becomes easy, So for myself, I would say meditation and prayer was my biggest thing.
What's funny is you talk about getting centered, because some people get hyped up and then that's like frenetic energy, like they're spazzing. I'm a big fan of AC/DC and getting pumped up. But pregame, like that, the moments before, it was about just bringing that calm and trying to slow the game down, right? Like just trying to get it to where like you're a step ahead of everybody else. Yeah. I think Aristotle said, if you love the work, you will have perfection. I'm paraphrasing and I'm kind of butchering it, but to have perfection in the work is to love the process. Yes, so loving the process will yield the perfect outcome. If you're just focused on the outcome, like you have to love the Monday through Friday, and then game day is easy. Yeah. Right? Like if you love the process, then perfection shows up in the work, but you have to kind of enjoy the suck. Yeah, I mean, like the grimy days. What would you say?
I enjoyed the meetings before every series, and that might sound weird. You come off the field when you're at home. You come off the field, and in between BP and the game starting, the first game of the series, you sat down and spent about 45 minutes. So you go from that meeting, and you're getting an overview of what's going on with their club, who's hot, who's not, and then you go through their hot zones, all that different stuff. You have to. It's interesting because you have the bullpen as well. You have a lot of guys in the bullpen. You kind of have to tailor your game plan around. So I enjoyed learning about that, and then also going from that meeting to the starter of the game. He wouldn't be in that meeting, so you'd sit down with him and talk to him on what he was doing, and then being able to take that and see what's going on in the bullpen, and things change during the course of the game. So I enjoyed, I guess, the studying part of it. The video kind of got monotonous to me. I liked the words. I wanted to see the stats. I wanted to see the actual numbers on things. And I always felt like if I was prepared mentally that way, and playing it out in my mind too, working even when I was behind the plate in a situation, I'm going these 3, 4, 5 pitches. I already know where I'm going with this. If we fall behind, if we get ahead. Just so that you're not surprised.
Right.
Nothing
and there's calm in that too, right? Within preparation creates calm. So some people are like, I don't like the process and doing all the homework. Well, but I want to be calm or I want to perform well. Well, that's part of it, is like putting the mind at ease because you've done the work, you know it's there, and then just being able to complete that. Health-wise, I want to talk to both of you about what is a biohack, what is a thing you've done for health. And before we jump into it, I want to say thank you because Marvin helped us with a video, and I shared it with Matt. But I took some chiropractic research, which a lot of it's based on 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks worth of care, because that's where the best results come from. But I found a study that just had a single adjustment, and you helped me illustrate this and highlight this. And then a ton of chiropractors saw it and shared it. Within a couple of weeks, it's been shared a couple thousand times. It's been viewed over 100,000 times. But it's just real simple stuff. But that's my passion and what we do. But thank you for doing that because it was pro chiropractic. It wasn't about me. It was just, here's a study that was done for chiropractic. This is what we did, but at a really high level. And it just resonated, I think, with my profession because people were like, hey, if that's what one adjustment, imagine if you did a program that we recommend, or 8 weeks or 12 weeks, which is typically where you see the best results. But if one does this and we extrapolate over 12 weeks, so a huge thank you on behalf of the profession. I've had professional leaders in colleges and researchers reach out and be like, how did you do that? I'm like, he was just a cool guy. I mean, I don't have to tell you, like, if somebody had ego or attitude, it wouldn't have worked, but he was game. And then I had a couple critics say, well, the only reason it worked is because of the way you did the ball drops and the test. You have to familiarize the athlete with the process first. I said, if you go to Marvin's Instagram, you do that drill almost every week, right? Like getting your hands warmed up behind the back and catching the ball before it hits. So the pre and post, I go, he was familiar with it. It's just something that we did. Yeah. We adjusted you, got out there. So that was huge, first of all. Thank you for doing that. But on the second part of it, I want to know, what do you do? Because, forgive my language, but you're an older NFL player now.
Yeah.
Because you're almost 30. How sad is that? He's almost 30, which means he's 29 if you can do the numbers. So at 30, it's such a physical sport. What do you do health-wise? What are some of your health hacks?
For one, like you said, seeing the chiropractor is one of the biggest. I do the crowd chamber. I do Pilates. I do yoga. I get massages. I do a little bit of everything. I do a lot of stretching because, like I was telling earlier, I was saying, like, as you get older, you don't understand what your body's going through.
Yeah.
Injury that may have, you've been out 2 or 3 weeks when you were 23. When you turn 30, it's not going to be the same because your body is taking longer to recover.
Right.
So I would, talk to a lot of the older guys, like, okay, what can I do to, keep this longevity? And a lot of them, pointing me in the right direction with everything that I'm doing now.
Right on. What was the first one you said?
Chiropractor.
My man. That's right. Just making sure we got that. Cameras rolling. Good.
2, 3, 4, 5,
patent pending. No, that's a Homer Simpson reference. What did you do?
I think everything that he's talking about is perfect. In fact, if you could instill that into younger players right away, instead of thinking, oh, I'm young and I'm going to recover, or rely on the meds and PT, that type of stuff. But also listen to the body. When something's going on, I think you need to learn, hey, my body's hurting here because of X, Y, and Z. Let's take it. Let's get after it right away, as opposed to letting it go. And now biomechanics take over, and you start hurting something else, and now you're confused. Why is this happening to me? And being a well-rounded athlete, doing all those things like you talk about, the Pilates. The first time I did Pilates, I'm walking in with Misty, and I'm thinking to myself, you got to be kidding me.
Right.
And I did the chair. And it's all core and all.
You look
this
at me
stuff.
like I know what you're talking about.
Well, I think your wife told you.
I
about
believe
this
you.
before. No, but it's a humbling experience too. It's like, wow, I am really deficient in some areas that I should be excelling in. And so being well-rounded as an athlete, not just being rotationally going this way all the time, understanding if I'm swinging a bat this many times and throwing a baseball this many times, I need to be able to do it as much and with as much intensity the other way in order to equal out. And then the yoga and the balance and the prayer and the meditation and mind, body, and spirit, right? That makes up the complete person. So, these are things too, as being older athletes, that we wish probably we knew as younger people. And I guess that's the message too with all these podcasts, is understanding something and maybe reaching out to docs that can transfer this message to their younger clients, their people that are going through it. Nowadays, we were talking about it earlier, 9 years old, people are committing to one sport. And I was happy to hear that Marvin, he did karate, he did all these different things, and basically you said to stay out of the street, stay out of trouble, keep you busy, which is fantastic in itself. But that's probably where that 4.28 speed comes from, is being able to efficiently use your body in a way that is producing that type of speed. So
that's huge. And I think, again, multi-sports, right? I mean, you guys are both fan of cross-training multi-sports and not just locking it in too early. I get it in high school. Maybe you got to but, if you can play 2 sports, even through high school and in college, like, I think that's a better way to at least get your body ready. But if you want to talk about prevention, then you have to do things outside of the single sport that you're doing just for injury prevention. So when we hooked up in Vegas, what was the sport you were doing in the facility that we were in?
I was boxing.
Boxing. Like, talk about a tiring sport, right?
It is.
Matt, what do you do on Wednesday nights? Like,
do a little jujitsu.
Jiu-jitsu. So, but there's a lot of disciplines within martial arts, right? Like, there's a lot of learning to do it. So reps, hands, speed, a lot of that stuff translates. So for anybody listening, I think the later in life you can lock in a single sport for your athlete, the better. You guys correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I agree. You don't never want to limit no one's ceiling, though.
Yeah.
Early, like you said, early on, let them do everything just to figure it out.
Yeah, and have fun, keep it fun. Yeah. I would add for longevity, so you guys mentioned some of the physical stuff that they can do. chiropractic, top of the list. Thank you very much. But I would say also like off days. If I'm speaking to someone who is very OCD about their workouts and over the top, and the only problem I have with two guys like you is patience, is if I give you one thing to do, you'll do it 5 times. Because if one is good, 5 is better. So with the pro athletes, I'm like, let's just reel it in. Most people, if I give them something and they do half of it, I'm pretty satisfied. So it's like optimistic division by 2. It's like, if I give you these stretches and you do it half of what I recommend, like I can work with that, but you have to do your part. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of people, I think rest is huge. You know, and just some of the sleep things that I see over the years. If you're having a sleep problem, it affects everything. Just some real quick tips for sleep. 1, totally dark room. If you're traveling, you're in a hotel, you know, you're coming through the minor leagues, you're playing football, the room should be so black you can't see the hand in front of your face. That's optimal for your body. Having a cool room. Ideally, they've done studies and sleep studies, 64 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it's lower than 20 Celsius, 17 degrees Celsius. A cool room is the best way to have that. And then some kind of, you know, white noise or ambient noise. For some people, that helps them out. So it could be just something off in the distance. But it's got to be real slow and low tone, because otherwise, innately, intuitively, your brain speeds up to the beats of the music, which is why AC/DC and rock and roll pregame, it gets your heart rate up. They've actually done scientific studies in this. However, if it's slow and ambient music, then your body, again, we call it the innate intelligence of your body, slows to meet that, and you can kind of slow. And then I think above all, just having a pre-bed rhythms and rituals, which isn't always easy on the road, or if you have roommates. You know, again, if you're playing on a team, sometimes you get thrown in with somebody for the weekend or for the trip, and that's just how it goes. But have your own routine, like what you can control, do it, and then just get in your sleep and your rest. Matt's always got a big question when it comes to...
You got it, Ben.
Yeah, but with younger athletes, some of the stuff, and you can certainly check it.
I was going to check my notes. Yeah.
You sure can, yeah. But you always, like, it seems like you always want to know about helping out the younger athletes in a way, maybe ahead of their time. Does that make sense? Like,
well, we had talked about it earlier. Like when I started playing baseball in high school, they didn't want you lifting weights. No weight training because you're going to blow out your arm type of thing. Because, you know, a lot of that stuff.
He's not 29 years old. He's old.
I'm about 47, yeah.
I'm older than him.
Are you?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Hey, but I don't know.
Makes
you guys
me feel
both
you.
still look really good.
Thank you.
You know what somebody said? When somebody tells you look good for your age, they're really telling you look like shit.
Now that he knows we're old, he's like, actually,
you look
not
good
bad.
for 19.
Yeah. We've
Really?
been sitting here for 3 hours. He hasn't made that comment.
No, I think for younger players, especially, being able to transfer that information, I think that's the hugest, the biggest takeaway for me, for any former athlete, is not just to pack it away and take it with you. And I see some guys do that, and maybe it's just because of their situation, they're burnt out or whatever it is. But and for a while, for me, it doesn't sound like you, but for a while I was thinking, these guys are so spoiled. They got everything, you know, the way they, you know, I wish guys in baseball wouldn't be doing the home run trot and tossing the bat. Back in my day, you get smoked. You get smashed for it. And just be quiet and do your business. If you're making $30 million a year and you hit a 3-1 pitch out of the ballpark, don't be celebrating. That's what they paid you all that money to do. But at the same time, I'm transitioning to, hey, these are young people. And they're really a reflection of what they're being told and how they're being treated as well. So I'm not going to get on that 16-year-old case anymore about, you know, doing something or being flashy. He's been told something a certain way for long. He thinks he's better than. And I think everybody's been told, hey, you are a Division I player. You are a pro guy. When you really think about it, like when I first got drafted, they said 4% of all amateur baseball players make it to Pro Bowl. And then of that 4% get to the big leagues. Mm-hmm. And then when my first day in rookie ball, I'm with these guys, and they said, hey, you guys are all the best from your area. So now you're going to have to figure it out. And it comes between the years. So I think for me, with the young guys and understanding, hey, you are young, or you do have issues where you're coming from, you got to rise above and understanding it. And not only, I can't go into your neighborhood and tell them certain things, and probably vice versa, but for you to go back and be with your people at the Pop Warners that you grew up with, and your coach, and working with them and helping them understand how you were to elevate yourself and get to that college level. Because if it is not beyond college, maybe it is going to a JUCO and enjoying your junior college years and playing sport and getting that education, or going to that trade school after you get done playing, doing whatever it is, and making yourself a better person and elevating yourself. And then that cycle continues and continues. So that's where I'm at basically, is I want to give more to the younger players, understanding, hey, listen, take advantage of what you have, but it just doesn't come by paying somebody to put a ball on a tee. Mm-hmm. You have to do the work. You have to put in the effort. And that's some of the things that I didn't do necessarily in the classroom. I didn't go to college, and part of it was because when they told me you need to get a 700 on the SAT, well, I took the class at Santa Ana College and I got a 700 on my SATs because I set my goal for 700. I did 15 questions on each test and I shut it down, only because I just wanted to check it off the box. And that was a misguided thing, So if I could help somebody along the way, now especially that I'm older, I want to do that for them.
Yeah, and that was my rationale for wrangling him into this. Is I just said, what would make you feel better? What would be an improvement to the world? He's like, we got a lot of info. We got to get to these younger players. I go, that would be a reason to do these interviews. Yeah, and so really, that's his motivation. Taking time away from his girls is like, let's pull some gold out of some other quality people. So whether it's Marvin or Matt, but then share it with people. And again, it's like, if you make a mistake, that's okay, but you have to learn the lesson. There's a lot of people making mistakes and not learning the lesson, and the clock's limited, right? But to be able to learn a lesson and never make the mistake, like that's how you go. And both of you have mentioned mentors. You've mentioned players by name, coaches by name, which is huge. Like a mentor, someone who's walked the footsteps you've walked, and you can just follow that path. They've done the hard work for you. Now, be a student. So, and that's kind of the theme I keep hearing from this too, is like, you have to be a student through the process. You just have to. I'm going to ask you a couple of final wrap-up questions here, and then we'll throw it to you for anything we didn't ask. But biggest moment, biggest game, personal moment to you. Like, it doesn't have to be the game-winning touchdown, or maybe it is, but like someone says your NFL career and you got a couple of moments that you have kind of just hung on to for whatever personal reasons. What are those?
I'll say my first touchdown.
Cool. Who was it and where was it?
It was my first NFL play, and it was against the Miami Dolphins.
What?
First
You're
NFL
in the league
play?
in a play?
My first NFL
Let's take it home run. First at bat.
Holy shit. No way.
And it's significant to my heart because my mom and dad, once again, were in the stands.
Nice.
First play, touchdown.
First play.
Why didn't you just retire?
You break the record, man. Touchdown every reception.
Yeah. I would have dropped the mic and just kept running through the tunnel like Forrest Gump. I was running.
What did you do when you scored? Did you spike the ball? Did you dance?
I pointed up to God.
You did?
Yeah, I pointed up to God.
Nice.
I mean, that's always my focal point. So a lot of times you see any of my touchdowns, the first thing I do, I tap my wrist and I point up to God, and that means God's time.
Did you know where your folks were sitting?
I did not. That was the tough part. But after the game, they were stoked.
Oh, I
so
bet,
it made me feel good.
I bet they were weeping.
Yes, definitely.
Who were you playing for?
The Falcons.
Falcons.
Yeah.
And yours against Miami Dolphins?
Miami Dolphins.
Home or away?
We were home. Yeah, we were actually home.
So Matt Ryan was
Matt Ryan, yes, sir.
was a quarterback.
Wow.
First play NFL. It doesn't get any better than that.
No.
But what's cool is those are intentions, right?
Yes.
So were you playing on the outside?
I was actually on the outside, and the crazy part was
That's a speed
it was
spot.
Julio's play.
Oh.
And he was like, go. And I turned and looked like, who? Me? Like, and I went, and it was success.
So he subbed out for you?
Yes, he did.
No way.
Yes, he did.
So that's your boy.
Yeah, for life.
Right on.
Definitely.
That's cool. What was your play?
My first play?
No, what was a big play? Somebody says baseball, like what? It's a snapshot play.
When I went back to Miami, and I was the last guy off the bench, and I had a triple, 2-run triple to win the game, and there was some bad blood between me and the Marlins, and they didn't know, they didn't care.
Yeah.
I got released, by the way, by a reporter, only because they were making a spot for arbitration. I was arbitration eligible, and that's the way they ran the club, and that was business. And that was actually one of my learning lessons too. When I first got traded, when I was in A-ball, was it is a business, and there is no personal feelings, although it may feel like that. But to go back and do that against them,
but that's weaponizing the emotions, right? Like just taking that in and going, I'm gonna play well when I get there. And again, for people listening or watching, however they get this, I I think that's really critical is like when you set the intention, you can have it.
Yes.
Intention is probably the most powerful word that I'm hearing today from athletes. I think it's also super powerful in business. Intention as a healer, as a doctor, is super, you'll get it. And whether it's a positive or a negative, you're moving towards it, right? So you got to be really careful what you think. And part of this, I want to be mental floss, where people listen, they get a little tune out and go, man, I didn't get to see the video of Marvin, but I listened to it, and he's just got a good energy. He's got a good mojo, and it kind of becomes like a North Star where you go, I kind of recalibrated that day, or re-listened. And to me, there's those moments, and nobody else knew it. The announcers didn't know it, your wife didn't know it, but you know it. And those, to me, I think are the big things, whereas first touchdown, first NFL play. If it was me, I would have just kept running right through the tunnel and just parade them out of here. But
that's incredible.
I've watched some of your touchdown celebrations. It's usually that or you point to the crowd. But I also like the mentality that you've been there before.
Yes.
Like that. It was like the guy that would score a touchdown in high school. I played football in high school. I played back on the East Coast. We could play 3 sports. There weren't huge high schools here in California. Matt went to Mater Dei. It's like they've won 3 national championships in the last 5 years. High schools. I went to a high school with 1,000 kids, so I played football, basketball, lacrosse. And when I played football, the dude that would score, just put the ball down, those dudes made me nervous.
Yeah.
The guy that acted like a maniac, I was like, this dude's never scored before. Like he even surprised himself. But the calm, cool, collected athletes, I was always like, all right, they have some swagger, Yeah. And I think that's really big too for people listening. Like your intention and that silence kind of that you bring, that's that swagger. Score a touchdown, put the ball down, point to your watch, point to God. It's just like, oh, that's crazy, right? So what should we have asked you? What should be some questions, some areas that we didn't cover? We got my mangy shoes out of the way. We covered the reverse mochas. We talked a little about your clothing lines, one nonprofit. You also have a football team that you're coaching. Yeah. Is it Sevens?
Yes, it's a 7-on-7 team. They're 10U to 12U.
Right on.
They're the LA Rams. Shout out to LA Rams. Shout out to Coach Al. Can't never forget them. But yeah, I'm doing multiple things. I own a trucking company.
What's the name of your trucking company?
Hall of Fame Hauling, LLC.
Right
Yeah, so I do that. I have a couple rental properties. I'm just trying to, like I said, give myself the best opportunity to be successful.
Right on. He drives a nice car, but it's not like an outrageous. But it was one of those, like, it was super good looking ride and definitely fits you. But for anybody who's out there, money's energy, right? And if you don't take care of it, you're not going to have a lot of it. And I just think you're being really smart about where you've come from and where you want to go to. I think is huge. What else should we have asked you? Anything else we should have brought up?
You guys asked majority of the questions that I expect you to ask, but I just want to take time to thank you guys for taking time to ask me questions. Especially coming from Big Matt, come from Dr. Glow. I really appreciate you guys. I'm grateful and I'm humbled by this situation for sure.
Likewise,
awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
No, we appreciate you.
We'll be doing more. What do you have on your notes? Anything we needed to ask him?
A lot of it was football stuff, technical things, fitting in with different quarterbacks and teams, things we hit, and coming out of the locker room for that first time and all that good stuff. I can feel you, and to learn that your first reception is a touchdown, I'm still speechless about that. That's remarkable.
That is crazy.
It is awesome.
I mean, there's probably a handful of dudes in Major League Baseball that have hit a home run.
I played with a guy named Jeremy Hermida. His first at-bat in the big leagues, he hit a grand slam. I was on first base, rookie. Bam. And I think it had happened once or twice. Something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And to me, hearing that your first reception was that brought me back to that moment and seeing that kid hit that ball. So,
talk us through maybe the tunnel before your first game. So you're in the tunnel, you got Falcons gear on, you're looking around like, I'm imagining this is almost like an out-of-body experience, because we talked to Dan Henderson a little bit about his headspace walking into the ring. What was your headspace in the tunnel before the first game?
Just wondering if I'm going to get in, like if I'm going to get opportunity, like you don't really know being the third or fourth guy. Well, at the time I was the fourth or fifth guy, but you don't know if you're going to even get opportunity. And for my number to be called and it's the home run ball, I'm like, God,
so that first touchdown was in your first game?
My first game.
Oh,
do you know the ball's coming to you?
Yeah, he looked at
you're the number one.
Yeah, we're in the huddle. He looks at me and he kind of does one like nods, like get on your horse. I'm coming to you.
Okay.
We seen the coverage we wanted. It was man to man. He knew I was going to smoke them, and I smoked them.
Nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, 428. Those are the numbers you need to know. That's a 4.240. That's ridiculously fast.
Yes, sir.
Did he underthrow you? No. Don't answer that. Don't answer that.
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little bit. Anything else we should ask Marvin?
I wanted to know about that. How you focused from knowing that you're coming out for your first game and being able to control yourself. Really, I mean, I could imagine being like geeked out of your mind and just that playbook goes. I forget. I just completely forget everything. But to keep it together like that, and one thing about football too is like if you spend a full year in the league, you got 16 games.
Yes.
Whereas like in baseball, we got a ton of games. You got a lot of opportunities to come back, and it may feel like every at bat is very critical, but it's nice when you get up the next morning. You're like, I'm going to the ballpark. It gets, I don't say monotonous because it's really nice, but to me, an NFL season, when you're walking out, the stadium's packed. I mean, wherever you go, that place is just high energy and explosive. And so for you to be able to experience that, that's remarkable.
Sir.
Yeah. Totally appreciate it. This is Marvin Hall. He is an absolute legend. I just like his mojo. I like his energy. He's doing good things for kids. He's rarely posting about it on Instagram, but when he does, I'll shoot him some private messages and just go, man, that's really cool because it's coming from the right place. It's going back to where he came from. That whole full circle mentality I think is really big. The circle of life, like bringing it back, paying it forwards. You can't outgive the universe. When you're working with that energy, good things are going to keep showing up on your path. And it was one of those things we just got done getting him adjusted and going through it. And I'm like, man, he takes really good care of himself. But I keep hearing the mental game today is like a big part of it. Just awesome. And I appreciate Matt sitting down and taking some time again to do this because I did play college lacrosse, but professional sports is just a whole different level. And the area that I played lacrosse in versus, current receiver, NFL, just played games a few months ago, and it's like the speed of the game and the impact and the physical level. Like I'm just in awe because it is 4% of 4%, that kind of a thing. So I just think for the people listening, you don't have to be a professional athlete to benefit from this. It's the mindset, it's the intention, it's the SIMOO, right?
Yes,
If success is my only option, and again, if we go back to that Eminem song, the way it works is he failed in the first run. Right, he locked up, and then that song kind of plays out that he actually gets on top. So I don't think anybody sitting here would tell you that we're undefeated, that we don't have blemishes, that we don't have the bite marks, the scars from experience. But it's if you get yourself back up and you go do it again, and if you're willing to do it. You mentioned, failing 7 out of 10 times at the plate. Well, those are all-star numbers. If you're hitting 300, that's an all-star. So it is a mentality shift. It's mental floss that really needs to occur for people, and hopefully we did that for you today in this session. And Marvin flew out to California to do this, so I totally appreciate you coming from out of state and just sharing with people. And I'll be sure to drop the links to your websites, to your nonprofits, to the teams. And if people are looking for gifts and items, I think silence is a great one because it's more about letting your play do the talking. A lot of people are running their mouth and editing videos on social media. And one of the things I've learned is if you compare yourself to other people, it robs joy from the process.
True.
If you just compare yourself to how you used to be and you could be better tomorrow or next week or next year, that's where it's at. It's you versus you. And so just work in that silence of being okay with who you are. That's loving the process. And then perfection's on the other side of that. So 2 absolute professionals and people that live it and illustrate it. And hopefully you got something good out of it today. But one more time, thank you for making the time with us, Marvin, and thanks for sitting down, having an educated chat. And my brother, thanks for being here. You always bring the real experience to it. I can talk in theory, but Matt lived it. So thanks for making the time to do this.
Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Hey, if you enjoyed this interview, I always love when people give it a thumbs up or you like the post. However, if you're willing to share it and follow us, you won't miss future episodes. We've got a rock and roll Hall of Famer we're going to interview coming up here. We've also got a business savant that you're going to get a ton of insight no matter what you do for a living. And these interviews are really just meant to be a breath of information, teach you performance strategies, natural health, and maybe some health hacks that elite people use on a consistent basis. They're very time conscious. They want to be productive. And so as a result, I'm going to sit down with more people that I think you'll benefit from, but in different areas. Authors, rock and roll, certainly athletes. So if you liked it, drop a comment. And if you're willing to, share it, because the information is going to be gold, especially for people looking to perform at a higher level. If you do subscribe, then you won't miss future episodes because you'll get the notification. So hit that subscribe button. Thanks again for joining us for a Grow with Glow episode. Now you know why I'm such a huge fan of Marvin Hall.